A woman and a young boy step out onto a street in Iraq. Through his scope, a Navy SEAL sniper named Chris Kyle watches them closely. The woman hands the boy something heavy. The boy starts walking toward a convoy of American troops. Chris has a fraction of a second to decide whether to fire on a child or let dozens of his own men die. This is the exact moment that opens American Sniper. Growing up in Texas, Chris Kyle is taught to hunt and shoot by his father, who instills in him a rigid worldview. There are wolves, sheep, and sheepdogs in this world, and it's the sheepdog's job to protect the sheep from the wolves, no matter the cost. That lesson shapes the rest of Chris's life. As an adult, Chris works as a rodeo cowboy until he comes home early one day and finds his girlfriend in bed with another man. Reeling from the betrayal, he's sitting with his brother Jeff when news coverage of the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings comes on television. Something in Chris shifts watching it. Convinced it's his duty to protect his country, he enlists in the Navy at the age of 30 and is eventually selected for the grueling training required to become a Navy SEAL. Around the same time, Chris meets Taya at a bar. She's initially wary of servicemen, having been burned by one before, but the two fall for each other and eventually marry. Shortly after their wedding, the September 11th attacks happen, and Chris is deployed to Iraq for the first of what will become 4 total tours of duty, now trained as one of the deadliest snipers in Navy SEAL history. In Iraq, Chris is assigned to a platoon whose mission is to secure hostile territory, providing sniper overwatch for ground troops as they move through dangerous insurgent-controlled neighborhoods. His skill behind the rifle quickly becomes apparent, and after his first confirmed kills, his fellow soldiers begin calling him Legend. His reputation only grows from there, eventually earning him a substantial bounty on his own head from insurgent forces, who begin calling him the Devil of Ramadi. During his deployments, Chris becomes fixated on 2 specific enemies: Mustafa, a rival sniper and former Olympic marksman working for the insurgency, and a brutal enforcer known only as the Butcher, who terrorizes local civilians who cooperate with American forces, including murdering a young boy in front of his own father as punishment for informing on the insurgency. Chris's platoon is tasked with hunting down Sarkawi, a senior Al-Qaeda leader, believing the Butcher may lead them to him. Between tours, Chris returns home to Taya and their growing family, but he struggles to fully reintegrate into normal domestic life. Even physically present with his wife and children, his mind stays locked on the war. He's tense, distracted, and emotionally distant. Taya repeatedly pleads with him to stay home, worried about the toll each deployment is taking, but Chris feels a pull back to his unit and his mission that he can't ignore, believing his men need him on the battlefield more than his family needs him at home. Chris returns to Iraq for additional tours, and each time, the war grows more brutal and personal. A close friend and fellow SEAL is badly wounded during one mission, and Chris blames himself for not being there to protect him. Mustafa continues to pick off American soldiers from a distance, becoming an increasingly obsessive target for Chris. During one particularly dangerous mission, Chris's unit becomes trapped in hostile territory during a massive sandstorm, forced to fight their way out under heavy enemy fire, while Chris desperately tries to keep his men alive. On his 4th and final tour, Chris finally gets his shot at Mustafa, taking him out with an extraordinary long-range shot covering more than a mile, one of the most difficult sniper shots in recorded military history. It's a moment of triumph, but it also exposes his position, triggering a massive firefight and a dangerous, chaotic retreat through the streets as his entire platoon comes under heavy fire during a violent sandstorm, unsure if they'll make it out. Chris survives and finally returns home for good, but the war doesn't leave him. Back in Texas, he's withdrawn, jumpy, and emotionally shut off from Taya and his children, clearly suffering from the weight of everything he's seen and done, even as he insists to Taya and to himself that he's fine. At the urging of a VA psychologist, Chris begins volunteering his time helping fellow veterans, particularly those who've been physically or psychologically wounded by their service. Taking some of them out to a shooting range to help rebuild their confidence, Chris slowly starts to find a sense of purpose again. Over time, he becomes more present with his own family, playing with his children, teaching his son to hunt just as his own father once taught him, and reconnecting with Taya, who tells him how proud she is to see him finding his way back to himself.